Linux in an Windows environment, which is emulated, which is completely crazy if you think about that.
Oh yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that, and I don't want to go back to playing Super Tux Kart no more. I want more games on Linux. Uh,
It,
that's a complicated political issue.
to be honest, if I take a look at my Linux library, I can say different. I wouldn't be very sad if I had like 1 or 2 years to just play the games which already are out native on Linux. Yeah.
Right.
So if a game takes a little bit more time to run, if a game to run native on Linux, if a company takes a little bit more time, I'm completely fine with it. That's maybe an issue of our community. We go into the forums and ask for Linux games and Linux games and Linux games, and there are at least a small amount of people which ask again and again and again and again, and that make the publishers and devs, of course, thinking of the fastest, the cheapest way to provide the game to our platform. Maybe we should reduce this a little bit. We should only express that we would be happy to have the game, but don't start to force them to do it in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, true.
Okay, can I bring up one thing here though?
Yeah.
Is I see your point. I agree entirely. However, you overestimate a lot of. I mean, you've got to also look at the sales departments of these places, and they are not going to differentiate this. What they're going to see from their perspective is, we made an effort to make a Linux game. You know, even though in their mind it is a Linux game, even if it's a port, and our sales were crap. Now, that's something that they're not going to be able to differentiate at a sales level, because these people are not going to have the ability to do that. I mean, they're just not going to have the knowledge to say, hey, this was a port, we understand our sales were poor because it was a port and not a native game. I would rather have them pulling in ports and going, wow, look at the response we're getting from the community, and then going, I wonder, you know, how much further we can take this. More attention is better than less. And, you know, the whole bad publicity thing, same thing here. Even if it's a port, I'd rather have the port than nothing at all, because then the platform is still getting attention.
Yes and no. Yes, you are right.
I don't
At
know
a
what happened to
certain
that.
level of company size, I agree with it's to show them that there is a market. But again, I don't think that this market hasn't proven that the port is viable, or at least don't produce any cost at all. It's like I really don't get the answer from Blizzard. I don't get it. Why? Because they basically have, I think, 80% of the road done with the Mac ports of the games, and this last 20% are basically just do it. And I think even with those huge franchises in the background, like WoW, like Hearthstone, like StarCraft 2, like Diablo 3, they can be sure to get at least the coast back they invest. And that's something which our media, like Gaming on Linux, like like gaming on Linux is probably the most known. Our Reddit, our who can we call? Probably Phoronix, whatever. All this media should point out more that even you don't make a win, you don't lose. And you make an investment without losing anything into the future. I see this often shown in threads on forum, but there will be no representative of the company. That's the job of the media, which works for Linux, if you can tell so.
All right, here's a question.
Which are Linux friendly.
Reviews by Gary makes a good point about Grand Theft Auto 5. That game's been out and working on console for a couple years now. They're having problems bring it even to PC. But let's just say they brought it to Linux and used the Eon wrapper. GTA 5, Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare, any of those games, those big, super big title games. And it works great. It works good on SteamOS. Let's just say, like, by good, I mean it runs at 120 frames per second on Windows, but it runs at 60 or 55, 60 on Linux. But I think that that's why I differentiated between indie and AAA. Indie is great. I'm not saying indie's bad. I love the game, some of the games that are indie, but that's not attention getters. If you bring GTA 5 to Linux and it works, those are platform sellers.
Yeah, maybe platform sellers, but they don't bring you people to the platform. Because if I can decide if I get a free Windows 10, and basically you can get now a free Windows 10, and get like more headroom for other stuff. Yeah. So,
right.
As you told, 120 frames versus 60 frames. Then what system will I choose?
You're right. I mean, yeah, you make it. I like to have good performance. Like that's one of the things that I try. I really don't want to even argue about. Like if this shit don't work, I don't want to play it. If I have to go play it in Windows, I'll just go play it in Windows because I don't have time to fix broke stuff.
Yeah. By the way, Osirez, that's basically what's happened with Bioshock Infinite to a few people. They tried it out and they have hard-locked machines. Come on! A system which is known to be such a stable system that you basically can kill everything and don't need to reboot your system, produces with the game a hard lock of your machine.
Huh.
That's
weird. Cause
that's more than critical. That's huge. And to be honest, the game is now out like 3 days. And what I see is OP is working on fixing stuff, but that should be so high prioritized that you basically would imagine they had done the first try to fix it. Maybe today, maybe yesterday.
Right. I mean, but that I don't know. Yes, they should fix it in theory. Like it should definitely get fixed. But if you think about the games that are on other platforms, Windows and console, how long do some of those games go without being fixed correctly?
Yeah, but there was never a game in the last few years I can remember which hard-locked Windows.
Yeah, that's true. You're completely right about that.
No, that's not correct.
Which game?
What was it? It was one of the Assassin's Creed games. It would hardlock Windows. It would like have some kind of memory leak, and then just like the whole box would lock, and it would blue screen. And I think it was Black Flag. It's whenever you would get in the ship, and then you would start using the ship, and there was some bug in it, and it would just like crater the whole thing.
I'll tell you what, I got Black Flag for Windows, and it does not run very well. and my hardware should have no problem with it.
It's Ubisoft, because I can't even get Far Cry 3 to run well.
No,
And I have
you
a,
can't, man.
I have
It's one
a,
of those games.
I have an overclocked 780 that can't even
Right.
keep 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
But I just gave you an example of something that did not run correctly under Windows. And that's
Yeah,
not a
but-
game that's over a certain length of time. So it is, and they still haven't fixed it.
Yeah, they're not
That's-
going to.
To be honest, and any, how do I put it without making someone angry? In my honest opinion, anyone who buys an Ubisoft game before giving this game at least 2 weeks,
I already know where he's
in
going to go
the
with this.
community
Yeah.
is crazy.
That is true, because Ubisoft has a bad
okay.
track record.
But you asked for an example.
Yeah,
I gave you an example.
I totally accept that, but now again, that is one game out how many AAA games, and the first AAA game on Linux, which is basically not so old in terms of it's in DirectX 11 renderer that basically does this on Linux. I do know the people I talk to which try to use Linux expect Linux to be a good system, and if their first experience with a game is that the system crashes, how would you react to something if you just try out? You say, okay, I go back to the system I know.
Okay, so maybe I can give you an example of this. Okay, so in the 90s, late 90s, I used to use this thing called Windows 98. Okay.
Yeah.
I hate Windows,
Yep.
and that was the impression of Windows that I got. I was raised using BSD because my mom worked for AT&T, and that's what she taught me to use because we had like a compact computer, and she gave me a BSD system, and I ran FreeBSD forever, and then I decided to go to this Linux thing, and but there was a point when I had to use Windows on a machine, and
Yeah.
it would blue screen on a regular basis. No, so should I take every example of how horrible Windows is just by Windows 98 Second Edition, and then Vista wasn't much better, and Windows XP was kind of crap, and then they did Service Pack 1, and then Service Pack 2, and then Service Pack 3?
But the
I mean, should I take that as an example?
The problem with that logic is that you're an informed computer user. So the average person who just uses computers as a quick tool to get something done is going to be like, so what does everybody else use? All right, so that must be what's best. You want me to try this other thing not many people use and I've never heard of? I hope it's better. So Linux has to be better in that regard.
But we go back to this is the thing that I try to drive home all the time. I live in BSD and Linux for longer than most of all of you. Probably, unless you've been a Unix or a Linux guy, longer than me. But the point being is that I state this, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I used Windows because I needed to use Windows to do certain things. Other than that, I didn't care.
A system, it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter to my parents, because I can say, well, I'm trusted if I say the system is better. But if I tell someone, just try it out, without them knowing me, without them knowing my skill and expertise, they will come back and say, what did you advise to me? And they will tell me that was fuck. So, if I go out and say this game is good, then it means this game is good. I don't know of any reason why not to advertise.
Okay,
If I go
but
out,
you have
Truth was better dead than alive.
if
Hold
I
on,
go out and
hold on one
shoot-
second. Reviews by Gary says he lives in DAWs for 40% of the time. I feel bad for you. You should fix that. And real quick, what's his name? It was Swoop who brought up Dead Island 1 and 2. Those had bugs in Windows. So what if a game has bugs in Windows and you bring it to Linux? Those bugs are surely still going to be there. So is that a bad port or is that just a bad game?
It's a bad game.
So should we dig in for the porters, like the people who actually had the skill set and spent the time porting it?
No, we shouldn't force it on the porters. But again, that's not a game I would advertise, and that's not a game I would go out and say, yeah, come on, Linux is a great system, and you should play this game and this game and this game, because they represent Linux real great.
Right.
Okay, but here's the thing: gaming on Linux, by definition of the way that it is now, is still new. It's still in its infancy. If it wasn't for Steam, it wouldn't have progressed the process that it has. And that's the point. Gaming on Linux is still technically new. It is still growing pains. There are still things that are happening that, because I'm going to tell you this, I have played a lot of games on Linux for a long time, and there were certain games I could play, like Doom back in the day. Back in the day, you could play Doom. Was it written for it? No. Was it actually supposed to be played on it? Not really. And actually, the guy that did it to allow it to play on it didn't do it because he told you could. He just did it and said, here you go. And he actually even wrote in the game, hey, you know, if you can get it to run, you can get it to run and it can go. Okay? The point being is the gaming on Linux is still new. It's still like AAA title. They have not released an actual AAA title specifically for Linux that I know of, that I have seen. An actual AAA title that it was Linux first, then Windows, then Mac. They haven't done that. When they do that, then we can scream, then we can say, well, you screwed up if you didn't do it right or anything. But they're not going to do that. It's still new. It's like saying, is there any game that you've ever seen on Mac, which has been doing this even longer than Linux, has been playing games and still crap? Most of their games are still crap.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but that's shaky ass problem. You can't go out and advertise. Let me bring it to a point. You can't go out to unskilled PC user and say, come on, use the system, you will have a great time, while knowing that the ports and the games and so on will be rough on the edges. On the other hand, you want to go out and tell, here, this is a new upcoming system. So, if we as skilled and knowledgeable people don't stand up and say, this is shit, shouldn't do that. And therefore, the QA, which probably a big publisher can't pay, can't afford, whatever. Who else should do it? Will you stay in 1 year and tell the same again? We are only 3 years on the market, but Windows is 10 years on the market. So we might have more problems than Windows. No. You go out and say, this is a system, and you develop for the system, and the same quality you expect from a Windows game, you should expect from a Linux game.
Okay, but again, we own a market that they don't own. And yes, we're using technically a server operating system as a desktop operating system.
I think that's not true for 5 years, 6 years now.
Really?
Besides, yeah.
How often do you have to go in the terminal?
Basically for my daily doing, never.
So your daily use, you don't use the terminal at all. You can do absolutely everything
I sure don't.
from the GUI.
Stop.
I sure don't.
Because I'm faster with it, but I don't need to use it.
You can ask Google. I avoid the terminal, not because I don't know how to use it, because I don't feel like I should use it. If this is a modern desktop, I should never use the terminal if I don't want to. Which
Yeah, and which is possible. My aunt uses Ubuntu now on her network for 3 or 4 years. I never told her to open up a terminal. So, the same for my mother. The only one who is opening up a terminal there is me. They open up the browser, they start their YouTube, they start their banking service, and so on and so on. They write their document with OpenOffice, so the use case for an unskilled user is there. And I wasn't, since you don't, you say it's a server-based system. No, it isn't. A really huge amount of embedded devices use Linux as base. And you would never open up a terminal on your router. You would never open up a terminal on your car system.
Like he pretended to love me.
So I guess I'm kind of a special use case in that too, because I have a Pi in my car that I use because I have an older Honda with a carburetor, and I actually use it for fuel efficiency testing, and I have a little diode that sets and does adjustments. And I actually open up the terminal to access it to do adjustments when I need to on that car. So I don't know. Maybe for me,
that's because you guys are too damn smart. Stop being smart.
No, he is cool.
Right. 99% of the world will never open a terminal in their life.
Well, see, and the worst part is I even open command prompts in Windows. Because I don't know, I can just do things faster in DOS than I can from trying to click buttons. I don't know, it's just me.
I have a Minghui installation, to be honest, the Minghui 2 installation at work and the Cyclone installation at work, just to have my grab around and stuff and so on and so on. Yeah, I understand what you're telling, but we really should decide what is an average PC user and what is us nerds. That's the point, and that's something which mixes up all the comments and all the discussion around Linux. We have a huge amount of nerds there which know technically what's happening in the system and which can shout at the developer and say, how the hell could you ever do that? And the dev is there and oops, I didn't know. So yeah, it's probably a hard community to get by and to get okay with, but there's another side of our community, and you see it every day in Linux gaming, where the people are just cool and answer every fucking question asked. Can I use the system with Linux? I don't know how often I have seen this question inside of Linux gaming, and still people open up the browser, answer the question, give good advices, and so on and so on. So brings back to the point that I don't see Linux right now anymore as this server-based operating system where in it mode 3 without graphical is the best advised mode. Nope. And
no, I didn't. Now, that's not what I was saying. Okay, so when I consider an operating system versus a server operating system, what I mean by that is if you have a unified kernel to layer. So, for example, PCBSD, which is a BSD derivative of FreeBSD. I think it's OP. No, it's FreeBSD. Anyway, it from point to point. What?
No, sorry. I was telling Elizabeth to get wrecked.
Oh, so anyway, from point to point, just like OS X, just like Windows, it has every layer connected. Every piece of it is all one piece. It's all supported by the base. You can bring everything in. Whereas Linux it's two different pieces. It's the kernel and it's the GNU utilities. It is two separate components. It is not one unified base system. And therefore, we have so many different pieces. That's why I consider it to be a server operating system that happens to have a user space that works. Because nobody can agree what is better. GNOME, KDE, XFCE, we have so many different layers on top. We don't have one unified decision of this is what's going to be this, and this is what this is going to do. We can't even decide whether we're going to use systemd, whether we're going to use Upstart, whether we're going to use this. We can't decide if we're going to go Wayland, if we're going to go this, if we're going to go that. I'm sorry. When it comes down to a point, an end user doesn't care as long as the shit works, and as long as the shit works, they just want it to work. And if we can't make a decision to have a unification within the utilities and within the base system, then it's still always going to be a server operating system that just happens to have a user space, that just happens to work over the top.
System.
That's what it is.
No, system, you look on a wrong layer. That's something I need to give kudos to the Ubuntu crowd. Basically, Linux is, and I never want to change that because I love it, the freedom of choice. So it doesn't matter if you use one or the second or the third. This one, what matters to the business and to the people out there is I have one which decide this is the one I use on this system, and that's called Ubuntu. If Ubuntu decides to go systemd, it will be systemd on the system. And that's the distribution you distribute your games on. If someone else wants to play the game on a different system, yeah, he might to go systemd too, because there will be a dependency. The desktop user experience isn't done by a single person around Linux. It's done by the companies around Linux which make a distribution point. It's done by the one who uses the embedded system and says, I use this web framework to work, to write my application. Done. And if you want to integrate
how many frameworks do we have?
We have enough. But to be honest,
except for I can't get a GDK application sometimes to run worth crap right now in Unity at all, because they have converted to Qt, and they're in the process of converting fully to Qt, and so I can't get a lot of stuff that I used to have work in it, but yet I can get it to work directly to GNOME, so using an idea like Ubuntu is a directive choice. I'm sorry, I can't always recommend Ubuntu to people. I can't do that. That's not Linux. Ubuntu is Ubuntu. It's a derivative of another operating system, or another base, if you want to call it, which is Debian. It's a derivative of something else. Okay?
Let me make a quick announcement to viewers who might not know who you guys are or who I am. So basically, obviously, I'm playing this game on Linux, which is why everybody's talking Linux. Second, I am a Windows admin by training and trade, but I'm a Linux user. So when I get a ton of questions, emails, posts, comments on YouTube a day. And if I don't know the answer, these are the two guys I would go to for those answers. And that's why you're getting the level of conversation that you're getting now. Okay, go ahead. Oh, shit.
Yeah, because I'm a BSD admin, so that's what I do. Like, I do BSD. That's my backend. That's what I work on. That's what I do. But I use Linux also because it's more flexible sometimes on a lot of different pieces of hardware. I will agree to that. I definitely say Linux on a lot of things. Like, sometimes I can't get Ghost BSD, and I can't get PC BSD to load on some hardware. Sometimes I can hack the kernel to get it to work on Linux. In work environments, I can't get BSD to work, but then I can do everything else I need to do and work on my BSD machines as I need them. Alright? So that's fine. I understand that, and I'll agree to there's more flexibility. But I will definitely tell you that in my opinion, this is my sole opinion, Linux, the kernel itself, is separate than any of the distributions as a whole. For example, Debian, Arch, Gentoo, Slackware, which is, what I used to use back in the day, you know, any of your Red Hat derivatives, Fedora, CentOS. Anyway, you have all of these subsystems that are based on top of different configurations on the utilities that are added on top of the kernel. But the kernel itself, yes, without the kernel, utilities is useless, and I will say that, but I still have to say that the kernel itself is used on Android as the base system for Android, but then you have to have utilities that are based in Java on top of that to even work for an operating system. So, you know, yeah, you have Linux embedded on all kinds of stuff, and there's Linux in different pieces and functionality that does different things, but as an overall thought process, Linux is not Windows, and it is not Mac, even if it is a operating system, so its environment set is different. You have to look at it as the distributions are like competing versions. They are competing versions of an operating system. They may be Linux, but Ubuntu competes with Red Hat. Red Hat competes with SUSE. SUSE competes with Debian. And Debian, whereas Debian is a completely open platform, you know, there is no commercial backer for Debian. Ubuntu is the commercial backed by Canonical, and Red Hat is backed by Red Hat, SUSE is backed by SUSE, or whoever purchased SUSE. But the point being, yeah, anyway, they're all, some are backed by corporate entities, whereas Debian is not. Neither is Arch. Arch is its own thing too, where it's, you know, it plays in its own world and has its own rules and it does its own thing. But just like Debian, it's not backed by a specific you know, market set. No company dictates it. So when you have problems, you have to deal with the community. You don't deal with this direct company, which is fine. Ubuntu is, you know, they took what Debian has done over years and years and years, and all the infighting with Debian. They've dealt with all that, and they consolidated and created a platform. But I'm telling you this: Debian is not focused on the desktop. They are focused on their phone. They are focused on convergence, and that's what they want to do. They want to compete with Apple, and they want to compete with Microsoft, but they don't want to compete.
Not Debian.
What? That's what I'm saying. Ubuntu does. Canonical does. Not Ubuntu itself, but Canonical. Canonical is focused on their phone. They're focused on creating something else, using the technology. Okay? Yes, but the thing is that we have to go back to the point of Steam chose Debian, Ubuntu, or whatever for its flagship system because of the support that it has in the community.
Yes and no. Okay, let me put something together in my mind so I can express it in a somehow well English, because I'm not native English speaker and sometimes it goes all crazy.
Go ahead.
We have already an business which is settled and which is around for years and compete with Windows. This is the server business around Linux. There are basically two main players on this, maybe 3 or 4, depending on how you see it, but I think there's only one where you find your commercial software always certified for, and that's Red Hat. Why does it work? Because Red Hat says that's Linux system we provide, and this system you certify your software against, and whatever around is, you don't care. And it works. You can install an Oracle database on Red Hat. You can install EMC Documentum on Red Hat. You can install Sybase. You can install IBM products on Red Hat. Just because it works. Even Oracle decided their own Linux distribution to go as base of Red Hat. And the same, and I totally agree, needs to be happening with the consumer market. Except Red Hat and SUSE doesn't provide anymore a real customer distribution. They changed their model because there wasn't enough money in it, and so on and so on. So the only commercial distribution which I know of, which is backed for real customer, is Credentials Ubuntu. So it was wise to choose this system as a base for everything you want to have your consumer software certified for. Because it's backed by a company and you know what you get. There might now be a second distribution coming up, which will be Valve SteamOS. And I call it distribution content because it is no native Debian. It's a changed Debian for the best multimedia experience. There are even decisions inside which I totally not agree to, like running Pulse Audio as system service instead as a user service.
I suppose the cipher
And
is a kind of
so
leash.
you need these baselines. I agree, but these baselines are there.
Neither did I remove
And
it myself.
when we talk about Linux to a known tech guy to a known nerd guy, then it's Ubuntu. And
Shut up, Swoop.
As hard as it is, and it breaks kinda my heart, Ubuntu gave up on a basic rule of Linux for the better goods of the customer. They said, nope, you don't have the freedom of choice anymore. We tell you how to use your PC, and that's what Windows does. That is what macOS does. If you don't like it, go on. There is Arch Linux. There is OpenSUSE. There is Fedora. You have still the freedom to choose, but you need to know what you are doing if you choose something else. So
That's the way it has to be. Let's just be honest. Users don't need choice when it comes to desktop because Linux happens. Which there's nothing wrong with Linux, but people get all kinds of confused.
So, as a nerd, it breaks my heart to see SteamOS compatibility written in Steam. Because, no, I don't want to be it compatible with Steam. I want to be it compatible with my Linux choice, whatever it might be. Yeah, but Valve did the right thing as a company. They say, I provide compatibility with my system. Everything else, I don't mind. It's exactly what macOS is doing. It's exactly what Windows is doing, and we get the same thing for Linux. And
I just don't want a walled garden.
Yeah,
I don't want a walled garden.
I think that's another problem where we as community have an influence, at least on Linux. We as community can kinda stop providing, for example, Valve with security updates on the kernel. If they start to go crazy and make a closed source whatever system. So it's a giving between both sides. We need to agree for big companies that there's one platform. But those companies need also to agree that we don't want the system to be closed like Windows or macOS. And I think Valve did a really, really fucking amazing job in this terms.
Our minds are festering
by
sin. Some
Mr.
so
Gabe
blinded
Newell.
Oh,
they
okay.
will never Find
Um,
redemption.
my pronunciation.
The mind
Sorry,
must
I'm
fall
done.
It's all right.
Yeah.
My children
Um,
are without
that's
blame
where I see the future, and
Without
that's why I
fault.
say
and without choice.
I totally
For what
understand
is the
if
value
VP
of
says
will
at one point, sorry,
when
this
the
kernel isn't
spirit
supported.
is
If you have
found
issues,
wanting?
there's a distribution we QA against.
So,
But
like,
since, yeah,
if you take Android and you take all other things that are commercially available with the Linux kernel on it, and that have been successful, I think Linux desktop needs that. They need something like a Canonical. I just don't agree with Canonical's choices because Windows users have already rejected the convergent desktop. I don't understand why Canonical thinks that anybody else still wants that. I want a mobile device and I want a desktop, and the two different things. And Apple did it right by making them similar enough so I can understand them, but making them different enough so they're still what they're supposed to be. So we need a company to come in and say, hey, this is the Linux, but this is Linux for easy mode for everybody, and make those decisions.
Yep, totally agree.
Child, would you like to pray with me?
And then they need to not call it Linux, because anytime you call it Linux, people automatically just get turned off.
We're going to cure you.
Yeah. It's probably not the term Linux, but it's a problem that Linux is meant for everything. That's something which is probably wrong in our wording. If we talk about Linux, do we talk about the kernel? Do we talk about the kernel and the user space utilities? Do we talk about the whole distribution? It's just a wording issue, and Gabe Newell decided to step out of this fight and just tell this baseline we provide you for developing your games will be called SteamOS. If it depends on Debian, yeah, it makes our job easier. But how it develops and which direction, how the services are configured and so on, it's totally up to Gabe Newell and his company.
Right. I think he made a good choice there. Not that SteamOS is actually there yet, but it's getting there.
SteamOS based on Debian is a really good choice. Again, there are some choices where I'm not happy about, because they are in the veins of giving me more performance, but we ignore the security risks. And that's when we are nerdy enough again to say, come on, it can't be that we give up security for some more frames. That's not the goal. But there's another problem. Basically, System, basically Osirez, basically Ubuntu Addicted, Atomic S, Boat, Christute, Linux AK. By the way, he has an own channel on Twitch and does streaming from Linux from time to time too. We are the people who are between the customer, the user with no skill, and the companies. And if we don't tell the customer what is good or bad, the companies will do with the customer what they want to do. That's what's happening in Windows, that's what's happening in macOS. So we are in the hot spot of making good guys, explaining what consequences happen if they do something, and so on and so on. And that's a huge job. And I'm not sure if we as a community are ready, because we fight between each other instead. Fight together for a better experience for all.
But the thing is that I live in two separate communities.
Yeah, Um, FreeBSD, great operating
No,
system.
BSD. BSD.
Uh,
That
yeah,
encompasses all.
yeah. In these terms, okay, let's call it BSD. I might. Wasn't the Mac, MRCH kernel also based on BSD? So macOS counts as BSD2. Anyway, yeah, back to the topic. The FreeBSD is a good system, and I think it maybe would have been a better choice for SteamOS. In the end, BSD is much smaller than Linux, and I do know if there is a market for BSD. Nobody checked yet. That's the point. I think we only see Mr. Newell on Linux because Humble Bundle showed them that there's a market.
I agree with that.
So easy.
We couldn't even hold her in that tower.
Steam moved into to use the platform so that they wouldn't be stuck in a walled garden with what they were dealing with Microsoft.
Yeah, but
see, the problem is that they were running into issues with Mac and they were running into with issues with Windows, and the fact that the way that Windows is progressing. I mean, Windows is going to a unified Windows 10 has a unified login system with your email. You have to have an email set up just like Windows 8, but worse, to the fact that to where I can log into a web browser and reset a password to the system so that I can log in to a Windows 10 box. I mean that.
Yeah, but I think he's the right word in the fact that Humble Bundle provided the proof that there is a market here for them. I'm sure they took that in heavy consideration.
That's one point I wanted to say. Even if the another reason is that they don't want to get crushed between macOS and Windows, they could have also chosen QNX or BSD or Hike or whatever other systems there are around. They have chosen Linux first. There is already a base they can work with, and they don't do it for free. That's my opinion. And you had another point which I found interesting. Windows and their login system. Yes. I repeat myself. I'm German. We have a very specific education in terms of where should have our data, how our data should be provided, and so on and so on. And in Germany, still cloud-based computing, and I totally agree, is seen as, besides making some stuff easier, it's seen as a security issue and data issue. What the fuck? I start to using my mail password on my Windows PC to log in, where the Windows PC is one of the biggest security hole in IT tech.
Yeah.
So basically, I provide every fucking hacker around the world an easy way to get to probably my main email account where all my other passwords are stored. What the fuck?
Exactly. And Mac isn't much better. See, that's the problem. And yeah, you can say that the mock kernel is based off of BSD, but I mean, there's a lot of kernels that are based off the BSD. But it's what makes BSD different is the actual full ports system that's in place, and makes it unique and different between the free BSD versus open BSD versus whatever. And then it's just like Linux. So BSD has their own pieces within, but they kind of work together. But yeah, that's a whole other can of worms in itself, and I understand that. But we can even go to the fact that why did Sony decide to use BSD as their base system for their PlayStation 3s and their PlayStation 4s? I mean, why did they do that? I mean, why did Apple decide, or actually, why did Steve Jobs decide when he created Next to use BSD or use the mock kernel? Why did he decide to do it? Because there's things it could do that you couldn't do with the old kernels, and there's things that the mock kernel can do that other kernels couldn't do. But then, and there was also support for PowerPC with it that you could do with PowerPC that you couldn't do with Intel chips at that point.
I have a very easy answer to that. MIT license. Neither our nice Apple guys nor our Sony guys need ever to provide any source code. So if I want to implement a DRM system and don't want people to know how it works, because then it might be shown that there are security holes and so on, I use a baseline where I don't need to open up the source code.
Okay, that's fine, and I totally understand that, and that's totally fine in my opinion. I think if somebody wants to build something and they want to do what they want to do, they can do it. Okay, but the deal for me is that if I write code and I distribute that code and I decide to distribute it under a license that is held to where I already know that it's open for other people to use it, I don't really care what they do with it. And whether they give me that code back or not, or whether they make modifications to it, or whether they compete with me or not, it doesn't matter to me on that. As long as the innovation is happening and changes are going on. Now there are complications with that, and I understand why you have the GNU principles that were in place and why you have those licenses set up that way, and that code should be shared between others, and I understand that, and other innovations can be pushed. But having the innovation there and not getting sued because you did something that may disagree with another thing, and I can bring up 4 or 5 examples of when that has caused more harm than good in the lawsuits and issues that have happened within the Linux community and comparative software applications that have been applied. I just use VMware as an example, and then we can go from there. But anyway, I'm going to go take care of something else real quick. I will be back momentarily. I just wanted to make my point, and it's fine. You can say whatever. I'm not bailing because but my wife needs me, so I will be back.
To be honest, I don't want to get into some license discussion, because that it's another whole of crazy talk, which can't end somewhere. It's basically there are two ways to see a system. Windows, macOS, and many other decides to go by security, by obscurity. Is that good? Everyone decides for themselves. Linux fights for the idea that as more people watch at the code, as more innovation comes up and as more secure will it be. Is it good? Everyone decides for themselves. I mean, we have examples of both strategies to fail. And in a specific point, our Open SSL disaster was big enough to say it failed horribly on this license. Yeah. No discussion here, everyone decides for themselves. I just want to say why I think the FreeSB kernel is used in so many commercial products, and that's basically the fact that you don't need to share your source code on top of it.
I agree with that 100%. The problem with Linux also is too many choices. The whole reason you guys are even having this discussion is because there's choices. When you have choices, you're going to have people who divide themselves. When you have people who divide themselves, you potentially have a problem where you're not getting a unified choice of what's best for the community. And who knows what's best for the community, because that's relative. So there's no easy answers when you talk about choice.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Oh my goodness, that was a long time talk. I hope some of our viewers enjoyed it a little bit, and yeah, I think
We had some people come and some people go. They're like, what is they talking about? I have no idea what this Linux is.
That's fine by me. Yeah, the biggest problem or the biggest mistake I think many Linux users do is force their opinion to other people.
Soup made a good point, though. You guys had a intelligent conversation without it degenerating into something, a pissing match, which you don't really see. A lot of times that happens in a Linux community or gaming community or anybody's community where you have opposing opinions. People just get irritated and decide, you suck, you're stupid.
No, that's not the goal. The video with Linux Sucks was already mentioned. Again, most people I know care for Linux because they want it to be good. Only a few people argue with the idea that maybe another perspective can help them to get better.
Right.
So they want to force your opinion, their opinion on you, and that never worked out. So that's something we need to learn as community, and I think on the other hand, people need to learn that there are valid ideas inside of the Linux community, and they need to listen to them. Because that's something completely new for every developer, completely commercial developer. Someone from outside take a look at your product and can tell you how to make something better. Oh my goodness. That's something where the point comes that you need to start to get together and not fight to each other. That's why I always say I'm really happy that WP did deliver a product which can at least fill the basic requirements. It's a whole different discussion if the way WP choose is the right way.
Right. Well, we're potentially at a turning point. So, you know, when the microprocessor was born, that created a whole new era of human invention and progression. I think we could possibly, with the internet, because of the internet, be at a whole different era in the future because of freedom of idea. One of my major points about using Linux is that if you're going to have freedom of idea and communicate that freedom of idea on a free internet, what sense does it make to use a closed source and closed idea tool to get there?
Interesting. If you step back a little bit further, you see that this new way to work together already has proven to be successful. Wikipedia is an awesome example of that. Basically, not one company delivering for the knowledge, but everyone who knows something. And
hold on just a second. What's up, Games Misconduct? What's good with you?
Hi, Rob.
You said hi, Rob?
Yeah.
You know him?
It's okay.
Okay. All right, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you're right. Wikipedia is awesome. Some other things are awesome.
downstairs and get to Elizabeth.
Like some of the community bit. Oh shit! That scared the fuck out of me. Oh, I did not expect that.
Yeah, so, yeah, Rob, I'm here. Not that, very often, yeah, that's true. Anyway, back to the topic. Yeah, this working together model needs to be reinvented on various levels, and that includes, from my experience, how we how we talk to each other, how we announce criticism, how we work with criticism, and so on and so on. Maybe in 10 years, in 20 years, when we have kids and we have told them and educated them that there is the person on the other side of the line. That's not only a name, it's not only game misconduct, it's another person with own ideas, own opinions, own emotions.
Right.
When we get this to our kids and it will be based in our society, maybe then we can step up for a better society. Right out now, we still have the old thing, the idea of protectionism. Is that the right word? So we protect our little area where what we call privacy, what we call ourselves, and we need to manage that, the idea of privacy, that idea of having a core of ourselves for ourselves, and an idea that we don't want to break into these cores. When we get this together with the idea of sharing and being able to share every fucking information of our life within seconds worldwide, when we this solve, then we might be able to really get an advantage out of new technologies. Sadly, some people have chosen the wrong way by trying to use this new technology for spying on other people.
Because of money, though.
Not only money, it's also some ideas of how to secure your country, how to secure your social status, and so on and so on. There's so much politics besides
money and power. We can pretty much boil it down to money and or power.
Yeah. These people are the ones who have the power right now, and we are the people who want to have the internet for the better future. I don't know which idea will make it. I can't say.
It's another one of those tough, hard to answer discussions because there's so much variables involved.
Yeah. I think it's also the idea of trying to understand that everyone is different, and in their difference, we should not start to make them be like us.
Right.
It's good that they are different.
Plus, they need to respect. Because I used to talk to a guy. I know a guy who's from Bulgaria, maybe. I can't remember exactly, but he had a very preconceived idea of what America was, to the point where it was almost insulting. I was like, really? And he would plainly state those facts, or not those facts, but those opinions and or facts. Some of them were facts. But I was like, well, it's not. I'm not offended, But I was like, you can't go around saying those things because you will offend people. It's not fair to say that all the people in the southern portion of the United States are hillbillies. You can't. You don't. You know. I mean, while it's partially true, there's people who are in the South, but you can't go around saying that.
I represent that fact.
You know, I was like, that's insulting as hell. Like, what do you mean? You think that everybody? And he said the people in the South are less educated. I was like, wow. And you don't even live here. I mean, that's crazy. How can a person say that? I don't understand that.
I mean, I have a master's degree and I live in the South.
Exactly. He said it so nonchalantly and plainly. I just didn't understand.
It's information. There comes probably another part of the discussion. You need to be able to filter information by age, by being correct, by telling the truth or not the truth, and so on and so on. And honestly, it's getting harder and harder because I can give a small example which is very present now. In the European Union, the Greek and we as Germans kinda are represented. Well, the mass media fight against each other. That's the correct description of it. To the point that a whole country gets maybe a wrong view on a specific other country. And that's something we need to learn or relearn, and that's something which causes work, because it's not just listen to the people who tell you something. It's checking if it is true, if it can be true, if there are some reasons not to be true. Reading probably even history, understanding more than just your job. You need to open your mind and probably understand some current and some former laws, and so on and so on and so on. And that leads to the point not everyone wants this. Some people just want an easy experience, an easy life.
Say what you will about
right. And the weird thing about the guy was that he was really intelligent in political science, and like he had a really good understanding of social matters and everything, but he was so blunt and so nonchalant about how he stereotyped and put people in buckets that I was blown away, like mind blown.
But prejudice comes in so many different forms, whether it's cultural, spiritual prejudice, or anything like that. I mean, it just really depends on what a person has perspectively on what their base culture is compared to someone else's culture. I mean, technically, Osirez, you and I have a little bit different of a perspective because we've lived outside of our normal comfort zone. So you and I are going to have a little bit better perspective when it comes to certain things, but other people may not have the same preconceptions that are appropriate.
Well, here's the funny part, the really funny part. He had a very high regard for America. He wanted to live here.
There's still time.
But he just it wasn't that he didn't like some people. It's his really blunt and nonchalant way of socializing with people that just blew me away. Because it's funny when people say in real life, because when I get on the internet, that is real life to me. Like he said, like Lark said, I know that I am dealing with another person. I can't just get on here and call you a name and expect it not to have any type of consequence or repercussions, whether it be to me or to you. Because just like you don't go to the grocery store and say a derogatory term to a person, you don't get online and say a derogatory term to a person.
All Germans are Nazis.
Right.
Just for example. It's crazy. It's there are two layers to it.
If I shut down those
The
machines
first
from
layer
upstairs.
it's meant as a joke by you Americans, because you take it very easy. If you tell this a German, he take it very serious, because we are trained, we are educated to really stay back from all this kind of ideas. So if you tell to a German, all Germans are Nazis, you will force him to an emotional fight that he isn't, and so aren't 90% of the Germans. To get the idea that it's meant as a joke, you need to talk much longer to American people and need to know more than just one American guy, and then you can take it easy. But in the first way, it's always offending for most of the Germans.
To live in Germany, and from what I gathered, of course I was much younger. I was a child. I was a kid. Like, from what I remember, it's not even something that's really that portion of history is not even really talked about there.
It is, but it's not taught in family. It's part of our education system. So basically, we talk about the Second World War, like 5 years in school.
Yeah.
It's a big part in school, and one part of this is that you don't want to be connected to all the ideas behind it.
Right.
It's okay. Not sure if it is a good way to handle the idea of everyone can express and should express and build up their own opinions. Because basically, in this regards, we have pre-trained opinion.
I will say though that out of all the places I've lived, Germany was one of the one of the best places I've ever lived. The most friendliest people I've ever met.
And as an adult, I have to agree. Like, because I lived there when I was an adult, because I was in the military. So, yeah, I have to say, I don't know. I never had any issues or concerns. Like, I mean, it was interesting because I actually liked going and seeing stuff.
Yeah, and maybe that way around is when we talk about sexuality.
Yeah.
That's basically the other way around. If a German says, "Come on, it's on boobs," some American might be already offended because of their pre-trained childhood.
Modesty.
Yeah.
Preaching their, and I get that. Like, I see that, and you see that, and we have that concepts that are going back and forth. But it's a cultural thing. It's a divide within the culture itself, because not all of the United States are going to have those same preconceptions. Because you can say something in New York, and you can say something in Los Angeles, and you can say something in, say, Georgia, the state as a whole. Maybe Atlanta, you could get away with some stuff in Georgia. I'm just saying. But you couldn't say the exact same thing if you went, say, to Dallas. So there's things that you can say in different areas in the United States that may or may not be viewed the same.
I think one thing about the United States, you can continue. I just want to make it the fact known that one thing about the United States, yes, it is a country, but in essence, it's really 50 countries with their own things and their own ideas and their own culture and their own everything. People like to automatically just group Americans just because they're American. And like you say, what we believe here, they might have a completely different idea in West Virginia.
Right. So in the United States, I'm a Texan first, and I am a U.S. citizen second.
Right.
I will tell you that straight up. I go anywhere else, somebody asks me where I'm from, I say I'm from Texas. Then I say, well, I'm from the United States. And that's just the way it is. I mean, because I have more pride for my state than I actually do for my entire country. And it's just the way I am. And I don't mean to be an ass about it, but it's true.
It's alright, but exactly these differences are the one which, in my opinion, one of the steps we need to take above if we want to have a free worldwide idea of how people should live together and behave together. And that's exactly where we came from with this discussion. Could the internet be better in the future? What do we need to do, and so on and so on? And one of the points which I think for years is problematic, not changing the process, but problematic is that people are different, and we need to step back when we talk to other people from other countries, maybe even when I talk to my neighbor. We need to step back and respect their opinions. Really respect them. Not only say, yeah, I did understand, but nope. Respecting them as a person and get together again, and then we can maybe even.
All right, bud. We'll talk to you later.
Get together in different communities better, and so on and so on, and a whole lot of discussions will be reduced, or at least worked out on a kindly way, like we did all the time now today. We didn't cry at each other or called each other someone who uses drugs to an obsessive amount, like someone did on a petition. Oh my goodness. What the fuck? Anyway, so game is candid. Another point that I would like to bring up is that a lot of people don't understand that the German armed forces didn't necessarily agree with the leadership, but under respect for the office, they had little choice but to do what they thought was the best of the for the country. It is the cost of being a soldier. Yes. Totally agree. Game is.
You ready?
Just do it.
Here.
I think it's for every country the same. You have to. Yeah, you have to suppress your own opinions on some stuff to be part of the army.
Yeah, that is true.
Even every army law says if it is against humanity, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, right. It doesn't work like that in reality.
The reality maybe is a little bit different.
I think someone meant for you to have this.
What is it?
Just
So
read it.
Anyway, aside from that, not to cut that piece out, but I believe it's kind of the idea or concept, the fact that anybody is an oppressor to someone else, no matter what it is in the situation, and that for us as a global community, because we are a global community, for us to actually be a community, we have to treat each other like we're community members and not
opposing sides.
Bullies. Well, there are going to be bullies in the community, and at some point somebody has to, correct the bully in the community, and that's what sometimes has to happen. Sometimes it's whatever.
What if the bully is the community leaders? Like, there's some people in Linux who are really, really like set in stone about the opinions of what Linux is. Like totally, like there's no other way. Where freedom and non-proprietary operating system, you should never use proprietary stuff.
Yes, I understand it, and there's also other people who are, that sort of make things that make Linux work, and they're named after those people, and they're assholes too, but so what?
I love this
asshole. The point. I'm just saying, so what? They're assholes.
Elizabeth.
No, it doesn't matter. Whatever.
I wouldn't call them assholes. to the
Really?
point that, yeah,
Let's just say Linus, Stallman, the elder folks, they have some pretty like standoffish views about Linux. I think
yeah, you wouldn't change their opinion, but would you try to change the opinion of your grandpa?
The procedure should
no.
So, why do you try to do it on Linux?
I would still call my grandpa an asshole. Actually, wait, I have done that before. So yeah, I call it how I see it. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. You know, that's just the way
I'm not
shit comes out of there. I mean, if shit comes out, you're an asshole.
I'm not even trying to change their views. I'm just saying that that's the leadership, the original, I guess you can say, generation of Linux. I think we would be considered more of second generation.
If we are second, we are more third or fourth.
See, I'm not though. That's the problem. I'm not. I've been using Linux since Linux was in, since 1992. So
I mean, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, in because age and where the time and the culture you grew up in is a little bit different. You're a little bit more open-minded than, say, the original group.